This video is brought to you by Miniature Market. Thousands of board games, discounted prices, miniaturemarket.com.
Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we're going all the way to London. But not in the nice daytime, we're going to the nighttime where people are lurking in the dark, it's hard to see. Because Jack the Ripper is out. Today we're looking at this two-player asymmetrical game, Mr. Jack. This is the 10th anniversary edition of this deduction game for two players. Let me show you how it's played, and I'll see you on the other side. Mr. Jack is set in London, and there's 8 different characters that could possibly be Jack. Now the board starts exactly the same every single game, and at the beginning of the game, the player who is Jack is going to secretly take one of these cards and look at it, and that is his identity for the game. In this case, I am the black player, Sergeant Goodley. They would secretly look at this, keep it in front for the rest of the game, and these would be put to the side. So here is Jack, and so what Jack's trying to do is go out of one of the 4 different alleyways. Now some of them are blocked at the beginning of the game, but if Jack, on a night that he cannot be seen, we'll get that later, he's trying to escape, or he's trying to be wrongfully accused, meaning the investigator accuses the wrong player of being Jack. That's what Jack's trying to do. The investigator is trying to narrow down which ones are not Jack, and over the course of 8 rounds. If the investigator goes all the way through 8 rounds and has not found Jack yet, Jack will also win. But they're trying to accuse him before then. Now how the game works is it's 8 rounds long. Each round, 4 characters are going to get pulled up, and those actions can be taken, those characters can be moved. In the odd rounds, the investigator in this board is orange and Jack is sort of gray. So in the first round, the investigator is going to get the first move, Jack's going to get 2 in a row, and then the investigator is going to get the last move. But in the even rounds, Jack's going to get the first move, investigator's 2 in a row, and then Jack's going to get the last one, and that will just keep going on and on. Some other things happen I'll talk about here, but let's look at what would happen with the characters. So at the beginning of an odd round, all these cards are shuffled, and then 4 of them randomly come out. Now these are the 4 characters that can be moved in this round, and as we said, investigator gets to pick first. They would pick one of these characters, move with them, and then possibly do a special action. Then Jack's going to get to take any 2, and then the investigator will take the last one. Let me show you what some of these do. Most all of them, except for Miss Stealthy, will move between 1 and 3 hexes. She can move 1 through 4. She's the only one that can move further, but let's show you these in order. Let's look at Sherlock Holmes. He can move 1 to 3, and after his movement, he can take an alibi card. Now it's important to note, what does seen and unseen mean? At the beginning of the game, it's half and half. Half the players can be seen, and when you're seen, you are either next to a lamp or next to another player. This player's next to a lamp, so is this one, and so are these 2 next to a lamp. These guys can be seen. He's not next to a person or a lamp, neither is he, neither is he, neither is she. So half the people are seen, half the people are unseen. The investigator is trying to get it knocked down half every time to kind of knock down half of the possible suspects, where Jack is trying to keep them as many lit or as many unlit, all in the same lighting, all or none at the same time, so it's a push and pull. Now this gentleman here, he can go 1 to 3 and get an alibi card. When you move, you cannot move through any of the buildings, you can't move through the lights, whether there's a light there or not, but you can move through some of these things. So he could go 1, 2, 3, for example, and now he's seen by this light. You can go through manhole covers. So you could go 1, and then for a second move, I could move to any open manhole cover. I could go 2, 3. Of course, now he's seen here. Now, after his move, he will take one of the alibi cards. Now, these are the ones that Jack took to see his identity. He gets to look at one of these, and now he knows which one is ruled out in his mind, but Jack won't know it. So the player that moved that Sherlock Holmes would secretly look at this and go, oh, if it was the investigator, they'd say, oh, okay, he cannot be the blue character, Expecto Lestrade. And if Jack took it, he'd go, okay, this player will never be able to know for sure that I'm not this player. Either way, they'd look at it secretly and keep it in front of them. And once they move, this would just get put off to the side. Now let's say Jack now has 2 moves. Let's say he uses Gull. Gull can move either 1 through 3, or instead of moving, they can just swap him with any other character. So maybe the player, instead of moving him 1 to 3, he swaps this with the orange guy, just like that. And let's say Jack takes this player, and this one can move 1 through 4, but she can also move through objects. So she can go like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, for example. And then the investigator will take the last card available, which is Inspector Lestrade. They'll move 1 to 3 before or after they move one of the police lines. So let's say he's going to take them. Let's just say he goes 1, 2, leaves them there, and he has to move one of these 2 to one of the other ones, and maybe he takes this and moves it to over there. Now at the end of this, they'll ask Jack, can Jack be seen? And in this case, we know that this is Jack, and he's next to another player, so we say, yes, Jack can be seen. So what happens, any player that is not next to a person or a light is not seen, so we know it's not them. So we'd flip these over to a gray side, knowing that they're no longer suspects. He cannot be Jack because he's not seen, neither can he. So after the first round, the investigator's done a good job of narrowing down 3 of the people that are not Jack. And because he's seen, he stays lit. If he was unseen, he would turn to darkness. This is important because Jack can only escape off the board if in the previous round he was unseen, meaning this card is up during the round. But in this case, he's seen, which means Jack cannot escape next round, even if he could. Now before we just check Jack, but before we end the first 4 rounds, we remove a light. The lights are numbered, and this one says we remove light number 1, and then we'll go to round number 2. So light number 1 just gets removed off the board. So over the first 4 rounds, there's going to be less and less light. So it's easier to stay lit at the beginning of the game, but then it's easier to stay dark towards the end of the game. The 4 cards that did not come out in the odd round come out now, and it's going to go Jack, then 2 for the investigator, and then 1 for Jack. Let's look at these guys closer. Sergeant Goodley is probably the most powerful character in the game. He can move 1 to 3, and then before or after, he can blow his whistle and move up to 3 characters towards him. A total of 3 spaces, 1 to 3 characters, but no more than 3 spaces closer to him. So maybe he moves 1, 2, and then blows the whistle and goes 1, 2, 3, because all 3 of those are closer to him in hexes towards the end. Well, let's say the investigator takes Jeremy Burt, moves 1 to 3, and before or after he has to move a manhole cover. So let's say he just moves Jeremy Burt right there, and then he moves the manhole cover. He will take the one from here and move it right there. No one can go in or out of that manhole. And then the investigator takes John Smith. He can move 1 to 3, and before or after he moves a lamp. So let's say he takes Smith, moves him up here in the dark, and then let's just say he takes this and moves it down here. And Watson can move 1 to 3, and then afterwards he changes his light, which can see other people. So Watson would just go 1, 2, 3, and he can aim the light at anybody. Now he's already seen because he's next to him, but let's say Watson ended up here. He could change his light, and it hits every character before it hits any boundaries. So it couldn't go through here and go through the building, but if he was up here, he could shine the light all the way down here. But in this case, he ended up right there. And so at the end of the round, we'd say, can Jack be seen? And we'd say, yes, Jack can be seen, because this is Jack. They're seen here. All these 3 characters see each other. This is the only one that's not. So this one got flipped over. We would take out light number 2, and we'd go to the next round. And you would continue until one of a few things happens. Either Jack gets accused, and accusations can happen when you're moving a player as normal as your turn. If you land on top and stay there and accuse, you're accusing him. If you're correct as the investigator, you win. If you're incorrect, you lose, and Jack wins. So it's a pretty big thing to do there. Now, the other way it can end is if Jack escapes. Let's say Jack was unseen in this round. He would have been unseen the round before. And let's say he's able to make his way 1, 2, 3, and then he would escape and win. Or if you get through the 8th round and he's not caught, Jack would also win. Now, many of you have heard me talk about the Mr. Jack system in general, but I've never actually reviewed the original Mr. Jack. In fact, it was the least favorite of my 4 in the Mr. Jack series up until this point. This 10th anniversary edition is really cool. I like the new artwork mostly, the new characters and such, but the biggest reason why I like this is because of the change in the board, which really helped rebalance everything. Now, the Jack system itself, I think, is amazing. It's one of those systems where when you play it the first time, maybe even the first 2, 3, or 4 times, if you're both inexperienced and you play it, you're probably going to have a reaction like, oh, this is cool. It's an easy game, but I can see that there's a lot of depth here. It's pretty good. And that's usually what you hear. The problem is that this game, you tend to need to know or play with an experienced player to open the game up to the different layers of strategy to see what Jack can do, because there's all sorts of tricks. I was just playing this or watching a couple players at the Rocky Mountain Gaming Vacation. They had the same exact thought after they played it. I watched them play another game. I looked at who Jack was. I came over and said, "Who is Jack?" I looked at it and I said, "Can I show you something cool?" They said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay." Boom, 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 escape, gone. And they were like, "Oh, in 2 turns I had escaped." And they went, "Whoa, that's cool. I didn't even think about that." And you kind of have to like teach how it goes. So I think this game does get a lot of love. It's very popular, but it's one of my favorite game systems, period, because of the layers of depth in this game. It starts off with just kind of understanding how the characters work. Then it's like, oh, it's deduction. Which guy is he moving the most? And then it becomes more like bluffing, and then double bluffing. And the amount and the weightness of the bluffing means more as you get more experience of the game, much like with many games. And today, and I'm the worst offender of this, as I play a game a few times and I don't see it again for 6 more months because I'm so busy, trying new games. But this game is an absolutely masterpiece system where you've got these 2 players. They both feel very different. One of them's hidden, one's trying to figure out the other one. The mechanisms are very easy, but yet there's a lot of game there. Even though it starts off in the same board, same position every time, every game will feel quite different because of the order that those characters come up and who Jack is and things like that, where you move things. So I do really like this game. Now, up until the point, this was my least favorite of the 4. Now this has jumped right past Pocket and the Phantom of the Opera, and now this is my second favorite of there because I really love the aspect that it's much easier to escape now. You are now, it's much more balanced and you can escape a lot easier, which makes the game more fun, I think. The escapes are really what makes the game fun, or if you're the investigator, stopping those escapes from happening and narrowing it down. So it's not taking over Mr. Jack New York, which is one of my favorite games of all time. That game is just absolutely amazing. But that game is also more complex than this one and harder to learn, harder to gauge your strategy with. So if you want to dip your toes in sort of one of the full Jack system games, this new 10th anniversary is a great one. I'm so glad it came out. I've been playing a mocked up board with what the new board was going to look like for the last few months to try to see what it felt like. And this has really made this game a lot better for me. And if you're looking for a quick 2-player deduction game, this is one of the best ones out there, and that's Mr. Jack. Now, because I love this game so much, I am keeping it in my collection for sure. And for that, let's induct it properly with a saxophone serenade.
This video was sponsored by Miniature Market's Review Corner. The Review Corner features podcasts, video, and written game reviews by gamers for gamers. Miniature Market, the online gaming superstore. Thousands of board games, discounted prices. Check them out at miniaturemarket.com. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for backing me on Kickstarter and making this season become a reality. I'd like to especially thank those here that have backed me at the credit level. Now, these video reviews are also available by audio on our podcast. It's the intros and the final thoughts on GameBoyGeek.com. Click podcast.